This is the third video on the Chapter 8 notes, and this section we're going to talk about changing table names. And in this particular example, we cannot use linked tables in Access. You have to be in the actual file that holds the table, not another database that links to the tables. So make sure you've got the ViewRidge Tables database. It's called viewridgetables.accdb. Changing the name of a table is pretty straightforward, but there are some other things you have to take into account. If you have queries that refer to the table, the queries need to be changed to refer to the new table name. If you have triggers or stored procedures, we haven't talked about these yet, but we will eventually. But let's just keep on going here, and we'll worry about that some other time. So this is a good reason for using a view. If for some reason you need to change the name of a table, you can do it, and then all you have to do is change the name of the table in the view that refers to it. And if everything else, all of your queries and other things refer to a view, then you don't have to make any changes at all. You have to make one change altogether. So there is no SQL statement to change the name of a table. Instead, what you have to do is recreate the table, give it a new name, and then drop the old one. So we're going to take a look at our work table in Access. And let's say we want to create a new table called work version 2. So the syntax is create table and then the name of the table that you want, and then the field name, the data type, and then either null or not null depending on whether it's required or not. So we have a work ID, we have a work title, we have a copy, we have a medium, description, and the artist ID. And this little note over here just says that in MySQL there is no memo data type, so you have to use something like varchar and a big number. So let's take this code right here and let's copy it over. So I don't want to copy this stuff over here. So let's copy that. Let's flip over to Access, and these are the ViewRidge tables. Let's create a new query. Let's go to SQL View, and let's paste in what we selected. So this is pretty straightforward. We've done this before. Let's go ahead and run it. We should see work v2 appear over here in about a second. And there it is. Let's flip back over to Word. And we want to check out the relationships. There are no relationships because we just created it right now. If we go back over to Access and take a look, let's go to our database tools, let's go to relationships, and we don't see work version 2 there any place, but we can add it. Let's right click and do a show table and tell it we want work version 2 to show up there, and you'll see there are no relationship lines connecting it to anything else at all. Let's flip back over to Word again. We want to create some constraints. We do an alter table command, give the name of the table, and then we add the constraints that we want. So let's take a look at the constraints here. You give the constraint a name. We're calling this work v2 for the name of the table, pk for primary key, and we're identifying work ID as the primary key. We are also identifying an alternate key, and the name for that is work v2 a key 1 for alternate key 1. And if it's going to be an alternate key, it must be unique, and the combination of title and copy should be unique. Then we have a third constraint, and this ends in FK, which means foreign key. So this is artist version 2, foreign key, artist ID, references, artist table, and the artist ID field. Okay, so artist ID in this table is a foreign key, and it refers to the key field in the artist table. Okay, so let's try this. We're not going to see much happen when we do this. Let's flip over to Access here, go back to our query, and we're still in SQL View, so we can just delete that and paste in our new one. So we're not going to see any changes here at all, except when we go look at our relationships. Let's take a look at the relationships right now. There is no key here next to work ID, and there is no relationship connecting this to the artist table up here. Let's drag it up a little bit so it'll be easier to see when it happens. But when we tell it that it's a foreign key, this relates to this, we should see a relationship line drawn in there. So let's flip back over to the query. Let's go ahead and run the query. Now let's go take a look at our relationships, and that is not there yet. Let's close relationships. Let's try to reopen relationships. And now we've got a key there, and now we've got a relationship line connecting the artist ID as a foreign key over here to the primary key over here. Let's go back over to Word. And the other thing we need to do is we need to copy the data from the work table into the new table, work version 2. And it has 6 fields. The names of the fields are work ID, title, medium, copy, description, artist ID. And we're going to select those from work. And let's go ahead and copy this. Let's flip over to Access. Let's go to our query, delete what's there. We've already done that. Let's paste in our new one. So if we look at work right now, work has 34 records in it. And if we go to work version 2, it has no records in it. Let's go ahead and run this. Yes, now let's go look at work version 2. And we may have to close that and reopen that one as well. And there we've got our 34 records. If we flip over to work here, it's going to look exactly the same, except we've got some shifting in our column widths going on there, but it is the same data. Something to note here, there is a relationship. If we click on the plus sign over here, there's a relationship to the transaction table here as well. And that does not show up in work version 2. Let's flip back over to Word. So we want to add and drop columns using SQL. We're going to add a column here. We're going to add a date created column, and the type is going to be date, and it is not required. So let's go ahead and copy this code. Flip back over to Access. Delete the existing query, replace it with a new one. So right now, if you look at work version 2, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fields. If we go ahead and run this query, okay, and we have to close this before we can make any changes to it. Now let's go ahead and try to run it this time. Let's go take a look at work version 2, and now there is a date created. We said it was a null field, which means it's not required, and that's how you add a column to a table. Let's flip back over to Word here. If you want to delete the column, it's another altered table. This first line here is exactly the same. And instead of adding a column, we're going to drop a column. You don't need anything about the type. All you need is the name of the column. So I'm just going to take this line right here and copy it. And we're going to flip back over to Access and go back to our query. And the second line here is going to be replaced with a drop column command. We're going to have to close work 2 again this time. Go ahead and run our query. Now let's go look at work V2, and that date created field is now gone. So that's a good place to stop, and we will continue with video number 4, working our way through chapter 8.